Okay.
Hi, I'm Meredith. Welcome to week 7, chapter 7, Finding Who You Truly Are.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. Um, should I? Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Jonathan, new to the group, read the book back in 2007.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Well, before we started, if you guys are watching this and interested to join our book club, there will be a contact email at the end of this presentation, and you can just email Meredith to let us know that you will get connected. I just want to say that.
Thank you, Alyssa. Okay.
All right.
Before we hop into the discussion this week, we're going to try something new where we take a minute and just kind of ground ourselves in whatever way that works for us, whether it's just through breathing or you have some kind of mantra that you say to yourself in your head. But I'll go ahead and set the minute timer here on my phone and we'll start, okay?
Okay.
Oh, goodness. I apologize for that ringtone. Didn't realize it was going to do that. Okay. How was that for everyone?
It was good.
It
was great. Yeah,
good.
it's like, I could hear a lot of background noise just to keep still. Shouldn't be saying noise, right? I mean, it's just a background from outside. So, but yes.
A few concerns occurred to me as in interruptions, but I did manage to put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the moment.
Good idea. It was about halfway through that I was like really intentionally breathing and like, oh, this feels good to make space for just kind of allowing in the moment kind of a thing. Okay, so that was good. Let's talk about our reflections from last week's exercises. We had these exercises when we feel the rising pain body. The moment you completely accept your non-peace becomes transmuted into peace. Anything you accept fully will get you there, will take you into peace. This is the miracle of surrender. When you accept what is, every moment is the best moment. That is enlightenment. You don't need to deceive yourself and say that there is nothing wrong in a particular unpleasant or undesirable life situation. It may be time for you to get out of it. If so, you can recognize fully that you want to get out of it. Then narrow your attention down to the present moment without mentally labeling it in any way. No judgment, no resistance, no emotional negativity, just the isness of the moment. Then you take action and do all that you can to get out of the situation. Did anyone have any thoughts or insights on, I guess, allowing things like the third paragraph talked about?
Lots of connections with this week's chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the flow of each chapter. It's like, oh yes, this totally intertwines in there. Alyssa, did you have any?
Well, I'm just trying to, like, this week, this week compared to last week. Last week I was having a lot of nervousness, anxiety, but this week everything is like it's going away, because it's done. So and this exercise, it seems like, that when the pain body occurs, so I don't really feel like negative things really for this week. So it's a good thing. Maybe I'm accepting the present, or maybe because it's no stimulus that trigger the anxiety. I don't know, but that's the difference between what happened last week, the difference of last week and this week.
Do either one of you ever catch yourself in the moment of like bliss or happiness and also allow the same space that you might allow when you're feeling like more negative emotions as well? Because sometimes I try and do that as well, like almost like really relishing in it, even though it doesn't sound like that, because like this is talking about surrendering. But to me, surrendering is like taking a step back from the emotion and just kind of seeing it for what it is. So like when I'm experiencing maybe a more negative emotion, surrender might look differently than when I'm surrendering to enjoying a positive situation. Do either one of you do that at all, or is it usually just surrendering with a negative emotion?
I have surrendered to positive feelings as well.
Oh, tell me more.
Accepting the outside world and its opposition to true happiness is necessary to surrender in some situations.
So an example, when I'm feeling happy this week, so I have to detach myself and see it just my ego strengthening myself. And I should not be so happy with it. Is that right?
That's not what I was trying to imply, that like I'm just, I guess what I was trying to say is like when we are in emotion, we're like fully living the human experience, right?
Right.
So detachment is being the observer role of the human experience. I guess that's what I mean by
of
surrendering.
why you're feeling that emotion of happiness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, detach
Just
yourself to
enjoying
that,
it.
enjoying
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We can. I don't know if I'm making sense of that. Okay.
No,
so,
you make so much sense. Yes.
Okay. So on to chapter 7. Who are we? Unconscious people, and many remain unconscious, trapped in their egos throughout their lives, will quickly tell you who they are: their name, their occupation, their personal history, the shape or state of their body, and whatever else they identify with. Others may appear to be more involved because they think of themselves as an immortal soul or divine spirit. But do they really know themselves, or have they just added some spiritual sounding concepts to the content of their mind? Knowing yourself deeply has nothing to do with whatever ideas are floating around in your mind. Knowing yourself is being rooted in being instead of lost in your mind. How can we practice the art of being? And I think for me, practicing the art of being like this is the first step, is like educating myself, educating my human brain in it, and then continually practicing mindfulness to remember that I am not all those things that were stated in the paragraph. It's just like a consistent thing, like that I have to train my brain to do. But
Yeah.
do others, what?
I agree. When I was reading the book, everything makes so much sense. But I know in practice, like most of the time, I might not be even, in that mindfulness all the time. So like I have to like maybe when I remember, then I would stop and try to be in that present moment. But maybe most of the time I'm not. So which is, like a work in progress.
It's the steps to get there.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you have any advice or tips that work for you to stay in the art of being?
I found that way back in the book before I joined the book club, the chapter where he says, focus on your breathing for as much as you can for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
That is a practice that I did. And I came back to it actually several years later and tried to do it again. And it was just like before, where I had pretty much been grounded in that state after the year, several years coming back to it. It was like new. It wasn't like riding a bicycle. It was challenging again. But the breathing makes a big difference.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathing is such a simple way to like bring it back,
Yes.
because we always have it with us. So
Mm-hmm.
okay. On page 189, it says you are not the ego. So when you become aware of the ego in you, it does not mean you are who you are. It means you are who you are not. But it is through knowing who you are not that the greatest obstacle is truly knowing yourself is removed. I'm going to read that again. You are not the ego. So when you become aware of the ego in you, it does not mean you know who you are. It means you know who you are not. But it is through knowing who you are not that the greatest obstacle of truly knowing yourself is removed. Okay, so they're talking about awareness. He's talking about awareness of who we are not. How does this affect our views on others and on ourselves?
I do have
Go ahead, Jonathan.
knowing who you are not, when others offer you experiences that don't meet your that meet who you are not, people offering you things that are for who you are not. That is something that is brought up in this chapter 7 today. So knowing who you are not, and unconscious people often offer who you are not what they want, is a very profound thing to be aware of and to witness.
Does it does learning this though like change anyone's viewpoint on how you treat others or how you view others? Because it has given me a different level of consciousness to kind of view other people. I mean, all of self development and personal growth, I feel like does affect how I view other people when I'm changing within myself, right? But like this whole concept of really stripping away everything that we are not, it melts away all the like things that you think are important but they're really really not, and then it's like, oh yeah, this is what's left. It's like this amazing being and we're all connected, and it really puts things into perspective, I think. Alyssa, did you have any viewpoints on like how how it's changed your viewpoint on how you view others or maybe yourself?
How I view others? Well, I think uh, we're not supposed to label others. And knowing, I mean, if let's say, I don't know, if like let's say if we take an example of, like if we look at someone who's like doing bad thing, if we know that that is not who they are, it's just their forms of doing or their ego that doing that, so maybe we don't have any judgment. I mean, we're not judging them for the action or reaction that they are doing. So it's somehow, like, but I'm not sure, is that your question? How did this affect your views on others?
It sounds like it has affected your viewpoint on like being able to detach people from their behaviors. Am I correct? And is that what you were trying to say?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, it's like not often succeed because sometimes I'm strengthening my ego. Yeah.
It's definitely another skill, right? Like
Yes.
it's not only being easier on ourselves and continuously remembering who we are, but then like as we do that with ourselves, it will like correlate out to other people too. Like what we have is what we can give to other people. We can't give other people what we don't give to ourselves.
True. And then that's really back to the abundance on the next slide, that, like you can only have it when you have, I mean, it's there already. So if, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I understand from reading this chapter. I mean, go ahead and talk about this abundance thing. It seems like it's, I like this.
I'll read the paragraph out here. This is about abundance. The source of all abundance is not outside you. It is part of who you are. However, start by acknowledging and recognizing abundance without. See the fullness of life all around you, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the display of magnificent flowers outside a florist shop, biting into a succulent fruit, or getting soaked in abundance of water falling from the sky. The fullness of life is there at every step. The acknowledgement of that abundance is all around you awakens the dormant abundance within. Ask yourself often, what can I give here, and how can I be of service to this person, to this situation? You don't need to own anything or feel abundant, although if you feel abundant consistently, things will almost certainly come to you. How can we be mindful of abundance in each moment? If we have abundance within us, does this change our behavior towards others?
I would like to comment.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
The abundance and awareness of the big I, truly accepting that identity shows us that we have everything that is, and that is the source of abundance. Let me examine the question again. Is the abundance within us? I think that the mind can totally identify with all that is, and that is abundance. But our behavior towards others often becomes more welcoming when we accept everything that is as ourselves.
That's big. Yeah, when we see the interconnectedness of everything, we realize that everything that we're doing to other people is actually what we're doing to ourselves.
So the concept of being kind to everyone is that the same with abundance? It's like you being kind to everyone, even when they're doing bad thing to us.
Jonathan, do you have views on
Well,
that?
we get to that later in the chapter, after we get past not minding what happens and the present moment, and further on past the paradox of time, straight to the let's see where it mentions it. Going beyond limitations further on in the chapter, we'll get into this more, but defending ourselves from unconscious people, being kind all the time, is not always possible, because as human beings we do have a sense of self, whether it be the big I or the little I or somewhere in between. And when a boundary is crossed by an unconscious person, and we defend ourselves, it can be interpreted as unkind, but illuminating their behavior and how it interacts with our sense of self can totally be perceived as unkind.
Well, there is another, I forgot what page, but there's a good way of saying no. So maybe for unconscious people would say, that is, for example, an example is like if someone tried to borrow us money from you and they have not paid, like they still owe you money, right? And then if you don't give the money to them, they would perceive you as unkind, right? Because you don't want to give them money. But there is a way of saying no, but with no negativity to that. Like state the fact. In, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I mean, even though that it looks like it's unkind, it is unkind, which is fine, like you said, because it's, like we as a human, we have boundaries, or we have to protect ourselves of, I don't know, but there is a way not to say no without negativity. That's what I like it so much. It's that you can say no, but not like not condemning, but just more like stating the fact that you still owe me money. Pay me back first before I can lend you more money. I'm just giving an example of that.
Jonathan, I don't know if you were referencing the part in the book, it is later on, I think this is what you're talking about, like when he said, he was implying that like unconscious people are going to behave in a certain way, and that's not to say that we need to get stuck into the role of like allowing them to abuse their power or something along that line. Is that what you were kind of talking about when you were giving your viewpoint
Yes,
too?
but so having this profound change of perspective is very subjective.
Yeah.
So when it does occur, it isn't always clear to other people that you have changed, and so you do have to sometimes assert yourself, which may be perceived as unkind.
I feel like it is important to be kind to ourselves first and foremost, though, and part of that is knowing where our boundaries lie as human beings and what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. I mean, the whole point is to grow and become a more patient person, but it really is up to the individual to know like where their lines are and what they need for self-care and that kind of thing. and I like that perspective when it's in reference to people who maybe aren't on the same level of consciousness that you, like you might be on, is we can kind of allow that space a little bit more. And maybe that's kind of the same thing with abundance here, like knowing what we know about abundance, that it's within us and everything, we can kind of view it differently than, you know, maybe we once did. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to add about abundance? Or
Well, I have a questions about not you know, like we talk about this in when we talk about this is about psychoanalysis, which is on 193, and you know, like psychology instrument that we know that Myers-Briggs that identify ourselves as INTJ. That's me. So it's not you, it's just the content, it's not the essence of you, but those things, you know, like when you aware of like when like for me, knowing that I feel like I can, you know, like I can work on improving some aspect that I'm lacking or the weaknesses by having that, doing that instrument, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's so there's nothing wrong of doing that, right? But it's just that it, but then it's contradict because it's just a content, you know, it's not really it's not really the essence of it, it's not really the being, it's not.
So I have thoughts on this, and then maybe Jonathan will have some insight as well. But like for me, I think that the choice to learn more about spirituality and to learn about the ego and mindfulness and all of that is great. And it is obviously the steps needed to take for an individual to evolve as a being in this universe. With that being said, I feel like part of life and why we came here was to have fun, and part of that fun is to experience what it's like to be a human, and get to know and love our own unique personalities, and you know, the things that we went through brought us to the point where we have these personalities that we do. Some aspects we want to change, some aspects we love, and I get that that's all like ego thinking, but
Right.
It's also a fun experience too, you know.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you have thoughts on that?
I was having a thought. As far as ego, certainly early in the book he does identify the word ego simply with one's image, which is the surface level of reality. So the diminishment of the ego is a inward movement rather than an expansion, and it really depends on where you're at with your life at the time, whether or not that is a good thing for you personally.
Does that answer your question, Alyssa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I liked the story of the Zen master and their response to each situation in the book, just by saying, is that so? Just by like allowing that space between what's happening in the environment and how he's processing it, because like our suffering comes from how we label things and how we perceive it's going to like do away with the ego. Like that's when the ego is freaking out because it feels like it's going to be exterminated or whatever. So the question is, how does detachment from the outcome correlate to happiness?
If you aren't concerned with the outcome, how can it make you unhappy?
Just by allowing what happens.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
By accepting the present moment right now can make you happy. I'm always totally off.
Why do you think you're totally off? You're doing great. You're doing great.
I don't know. Another example that he gave is that story of that maybe, you know, like when someone tried to judge and say your life is right now is happy, and then the answer is maybe. So that is your detachment from the situation, from the outcomes of that situation, that whatever thing that just happened to this guy.
Okay, moving along. Let's just go to the next one. Okay. If your relationship with the now is dysfunctional, that dysfunction will be reflected in every relationship and every situation that you encounter. The ego could be defined simply in this way: a dysfunctional relationship with the present moment. It is at this moment that you can decide what kind of relationship you want to have with the present moment. A vital question to ask yourself frequently is, what is my relationship with the present moment? Then become alert to find the answer. Discuss how the practice of mindfulness and being aware of our thoughts can disable the ego state of mind. Anyone want to jump in on that?
Accepting now is my relationship with the present moment. But how true, I'm not sure like how true that is, you know, like say in the book there is the example of, you know, like if suddenly I lost my house, I'm not sure I'll be able to accept that. That's require a lot of high level spiritual strength. I don't know. What I'm trying to say, it's maybe easier said to me. This is just me. Easier said than done. If I lost someone that I love so much, will I be able to accept that?
Is it saying though that we have to stop it completely, or is it just the practice, like that's the goal? Like,
Yeah, it's a natural process. As he does identify ego with one's image, which is simply the surface level of reality, the diminishment and eventual assembly of the ego is part of life. How mindfulness and being aware of our thoughts can disable the ego state of mind is very, very clear to me personally, in that it was perceived as a bit of a dissociation from reality. It was perceived as a going mad of sorts. So there was some deprecation of my image by unconscious people. So therefore my ego definitely did lose some of its grasp on my perspective of reality.
So what steps do you feel like you did to get to the point of, I guess, disassociating from your ego?
A lot of meditation, mindfulness, listening to the background noises, listening for the sound of a droplet in a noisy room.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of behavior, though it is wholesome, doesn't quite match the Western values and isn't exactly profitable for your wallet. So what I'm trying to say is that practicing mindfulness and being aware of our thoughts definitely does not translate directly to a marketable skill. Specializing in it is not a way to strengthen the ego, because it brings you within where things occur that aren't obvious to people around you.
It feels like taking the power back, and maybe that's why it's kind of convenient for the way our society is kind of set up to kind of stay in that mindset.
It is totally. I agree 100.
We could probably talk a lot about that topic. I feel like maybe that would be a good separate video talking about how society can wake up collectively. Okay.
Will that ever happen?
Having that conversation?
No.
Or society always?
Yeah.
Well,
Society will wake up collectively.
sure. I mean, I think a lot of people, maybe I should just speak for myself, but it feels like there is some kind of collective agreement that there is an awakening going on right now, and the people who are aware of this information right now are kind of like spreading the message to other people. And we are, everyone's doing the best that they can, everyone's evolving the best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And for the folks who understand mindfulness and, then we can teach other people just by living our lives,
Eliminating time. What are we talking about now?
Okay, this next slide is about eliminating time. When we speak of the elimination of psychological time, which is the egoic mind's endless preoccupation with past and future, and its unwillingness to be one with life by living in alignment with the inevitable isness of the present moment. For the ego to survive, it must make time, past and future, more important than the present moment. The ego cannot tolerate becoming friendly with the present moment, except briefly just to go after it got what it wanted. Discuss the ways in which the ego runs the life by keeping us in the past and the future. Why is that not helpful? How does this way of viewing things ruin being happy? So when I was in therapy, I remember like the first time when it was explained to me that like anxiety is the feeling of like worrying about the future, and depression is
About the
being
past.
in the past, and then like true contentment comes from just living in the now. That was a really huge breakthrough in my own life. And then when I experience those emotions, whether it's anxiety or depression, it helps ground me to remember that like that's not where my power is at. It's focusing on what's happening right now in this moment.
The ego, from what I've experienced, most certainly does run the life by keeping us grounded in the past and future. This is because people have a tendency to irrationally scapegoat. That word is a very it's a powerful word. Being scapegoated upon, and then the ego checks in and says, "Hey, remember, this is a group thing going on here. You can't pin this all on one person." And then you might even need to remember things in the past or tell them about problems of the future to remind them that though they blame all their problems on you and say, all my personal misery is because of you, you have to say, at least I'm trying and I care about the way we have been in the past and how we might be in the future. And it isn't very helpful because it doesn't actually wake a person up. It just ever so slightly changes the course of their dream. And it can ruin being happy because reminding people of things that went wrong and requesting to not be diminished any further requires them to diminish their own ego, which doesn't feel good for me or you or anybody.
Yeah, no one likes that ego blow.
Yeah, that ego bull is us or them, you or me, one or the other. Getting back to the topic of ego simply being one's image. Maintaining one's image also requires some past and future. The past brings us to the present, which leads to the future. It is who we are, and it does essentially run our lives. But it takes a profound discontinuity to truly be happy when we're part of a species that is, as Eckhart Tolle puts it, psychotic.
Interesting. Alyssa, did you have anything to say there?
Only thing that this relate back to the Master Zan, that like to say, isn't it so? Like when you accept the present moment, it's like no reactivity to, or no reaction to that thing can help, I think, with the accepting that moment. For example, like if people say bad thing to you, by saying nothing back to them, or just like say nothing, that's just you accepting it already, like accepting that present moment. I think that's how I'm going to approach it from now on.
Just giving it that space.
Wish me luck.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Yes.
I was just thinking, does anyone have anything else to add about on this slide? Are we ready to move on?
The profound discontinuity, I think, is very significant.
Would you like to let, or have you said all you want to say about that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. There is the dream and there is the dreamer of the dream. The dream is a short-lived play of forms. It is the world relatively real, but not absolutely real. To awaken within the dream is our purpose now. I love that. How do we awaken within the dream?
You have to clarify it to me. Is this talking about the real dream?
I think for me, what it means is when you get to a certain level of consciousness, it does feel like a dream, and you realize that you're the one that is dreaming the dream. Like, it's just another word for like the observer role. Like, we're the ones that is experiencing everything. Just as when you have a dream, you're the one that is dreaming the dream. But in waking life, it's like we're the ones that is perceiving things. I actually felt this way earlier today, and I said that to a friend. I was like, I feel like I'm dreaming. And I was like, it made me think of this quote, actually. Like, it was because I was in the moment and I was very grounded and just allowing things to happen. And it felt like in a dream, that's what we're doing too. We're just observing it. We're not really doing anything. We're just kind of like watching the things that are happening. I feel like I woke up in the dream by reaching a certain level of pain and discomfort and then wanting solutions that were not within myself. So getting to the point of like surrendering to something bigger than myself. And then life kind of started happening and pushing me into this place where I was reminded of all of this and continued learning about it.
You once upon a time, you did a long time ago. You did mention to me that all of our dreams have meaning, right?
I believe they do, yeah.
So then, so I guess I'm confused about this thing. I'm still confused. I'm sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. Is there something you want to talk about, or?
No, because like on 209 is, when he said, when the death approach, we may look back on our life and wonder if it's just another dream. And even now, you may look back on last year's vacation or yesterday's drama and see that it's just similar to the last night's dream. So, what does it mean? Is it like is it connected to what you just told me, like, a long time ago, that all of our dreams has meaning? It's like everything happened for
yeah, I view every single thing that happens in life has meaning, and to the extent that you give it more credibility, certain things can mean more than just surface level. Like, synchronistic things happen, and that's a deeper clue. Like, our higher power is trying to communicate a deeper message because we're aware in that moment. Like, that's how the universe works. That's my perception on things. Jonathan, do you have anything to add?
Sure.
Insight, yeah.
Yes, I do. Awakening within a dream. Well, willing to be the dream, accepting that the dream is real and being reasonable about it. Asking ourselves, is there a nagging issue that we are ignoring right now in our human life? How many ways am I carrying right now? those are two questions that I think are very good for awakening within the dream. Are there any nagging issues that I'm ignoring right now? How do I clear those issues up and move on with my life?
Mm.
And how many ways am I carrying right now as a way that further propel you into that awakened state?
What if our dream is too abstract? I have to be like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, like, I don't know. It's like,
Are you talking waking life dreaming, or like
I'm talking like dream, like sleep dream. Am I out of yeah? Is that
it's my point of view that sleep dreaming is our subconscious, that's messages from our subconscious that is processing through thoughts and beliefs that it holds, that can give us kind of clues to where to tweak our belief system, or things to pay attention to, that's how I viewed sleep dreaming.
but most of the time I would forget my dreams in the morning. I know that I dream of something, but I cannot remember. That's happened. No, yeah, of course it's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. Okay. We have about
Okay.
5 more minutes left, but
Okay. So this one's about allowing the diminishment of the ego, giving space when the ego is having that freak out moment, wanting to react to external stimulus or a certain thought. It said that you can feel the discomfort. So like when you're aware in that moment, feel the discomfort as if you have shrunk in size. Then you may sense an inner spaciousness that feels intensely alive. You haven't been diminished at all. In fact, you have expanded. I really like that because it like visually gives space for the emotion, and in fact who we are can take up that space instead of the emotion. Nothing real has become diminished, that through becoming less you become more. When you no longer defend or attempt to strengthen the form of yourself, you step out of identification with form, with mental self-image. Discuss the difference between allowing versus becoming a victim of a conscious people. That's kind of what we were talking about earlier, in that earlier slide too. So like allowing behavior versus staying stuck in an environment where unconscious people might project their wounding onto you.
yeah. So is this like there should be boundaries when we do this? When you said allowing, is that
well,
yeah.
allow them to diminish you, and me is what I did. I allowed them to diminish me, and at a certain point, they felt pretty bad about it and put me in a house and said, "There you go. We can see you're on some other stuff." So I didn't let them make a victim out of me, though they did deprecate and diminish my ego to extreme extent.
So you're saying to allow that behavior?
I'd say go with your gut, but people have a conscience that guides them, but it takes enough pain to wake them up. You know how they say pinch yourself to see if you're dreaming?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. They go on doing their unconscious behaviors, and eventually it's like they're pinching themselves. And they go, wait a minute, why why am I doing this to them? Why did I do that to them? Better do something to make up for it.
That's interesting. That makes me think of the story of Jesus in the Bible where he allowed his enemy to like slap his other cheek. Like that kind of allowing. But it's probably really important to state that like every individual like generally is not okay with that boundary of like, if you're in so much pain, you can like hit me and I have it so together that I'll turn my other cheek and allow you to like take out that pain on me that way too. I think that's like a whole nother level of awareness that I can personally say I'm not at that point, but that's a very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else here?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay, so the exercise for this week, you know what, do we have just a couple, I want to like go back to the
Yeah.
former site. I just want to clarify again, like on a very human level, I'm not promoting that people allow themselves to get in that role. I would personally feel more comfortable promoting everyone have boundaries and knowing what they are able to give other people, and you know, everyone is at different levels as far as what space they can hold for another hurting person in their life. Some people have to be very boundaried as far as behavior that they allow, and then others are obviously more flexible depending on where you're at in your own personal journey. So I just kind of want to say that I'm not trying to promote, with the Jesus story, I'm not trying to promote like allowing abusive behavior at all. Did you have something you wanted to say, Jonathan?
Well, yeah, you mentioned Jesus Christ, and I was raised in the Christian church, Lutheran, and like I said, go with your gut, because there are parts of the world where awakening does imply certain death, or you know, other kind of heinous atrocities against the individual.
Yeah. That's important. Thank you.
It is. It's not a happy thought. It's true though.
Okay. So this week's exercise is practicing detachment from the outcome once a day by returning to the phrase, "Is that so?" Allowing space to feel the feeling when triggered from external stimulus, letting the ego diminish, and then center yourself afterwards. Reflect on the feelings that came up after the trigger. I would recommend maybe like making this part of a daily practice. I know like typing up this exercise the other day, and then I think it was yesterday when I was in the car, I was like, is that so? And kind of like starting to work it into my inner dialogue when I'm feeling triggered or whatever was helpful. So it'll be exciting next week to talk about our results.
And that trigger feeling can be positive or negative, right? It can be whatever feelings that we have.
Yeah. It made me think of it when it was like a negative trigger. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jonathan is holding up the book. We all have
I'd like to show you that you can't spell earth without art. Thought it'd lighten the mood after that somber moment. A new art.
a new art.
Yeah, just
Oh,
Oh.
like a like
it's hard to see a little bit on
Yeah,
your screen,
because
but
you're
yeah.
so pink.
newer
You're like
thing.
pink.
Yeah,
Pink.
uh,
Your lighting.
that's lighting to help with sleep issues,
Oh, okay.
sleeping quarters.
All right.
Okay, so next week, join us at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you would like to join our discussion, please email me at mindfulmeeting@mail.com. Then we'll send you a link to all of our information. I guess that's all. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
You too. Have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
Bye.